She invited everyone to Thanksgiving dinner, except me, her father. There isn't enough room. We invited my husband's parents, my daughter said. I just smiled and said, "Okay, enjoy yourselves." But when they sat down at the table in the house I bought with all my savings, I knocked on the door. They yelled, "We told you there's no room. Go away." But then the most honored guest approached them, and after his words, they both fell to their knees. You won't believe what happened next. Listen to the end. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. The phone rang 3 times before Sarah picked up. I'd been staring at the wrapped presents on my coffee table. Construction set for Lucas, hardcover books for Emma, rehearsing what I'd say about Thanksgiving. "Hi, sweetheart. Just wanted to check in about next week. What time works for you?" Her voice came through flat, stripped of warmth. "We're managing, Dad. Pretty busy." I shifted the phone. I was thinking I'd arrive around 4. I can bring that apple pie if the kids want it. Silence stretched. I heard her breathing, something clattering in the background. Then she spoke. "Actually, about Thanksgiving. We don't have room at the table this year. Michael's parents are coming. Kimberly and Charles. You're not invited." The words hit like cold water. I stood, walked to the window, saw my reflection staring back with an expression I didn't recognize. "You're joking." "I'm not joking." My hand tightened around the phone. Outside, traffic moved through Midtown Atlanta like nothing had changed. "Sarah, I'm your father. I know who you are." Her tone carried something I'd never heard before. Indifference. "Kimberly and Charles are family too. We have limited seating." Limited seating. In the house I'd bought them. $340,000? 2 years of retirement savings, every penny I'd set aside. I wanted to say that. But something in her voice told me she already knew, and it didn't matter. "I see." I kept my voice level. "Understood. Enjoy your dinner, Sarah." I heard her inhale, preparing some response. I didn't wait. "Tell Emma and Lucas their grandpa loves them." I ended the call. The phone felt heavy in my hand. I set it beside the wrapped presents, and the contrast struck me. Bright paper with cartoon characters, next to a device that had just delivered rejection. The apartment was quiet. I'd lived here 8 years since downsizing after Margaret died. 2 bedrooms, decent neighborhood, nothing fancy but mine. Or it had been before I emptied my accounts for that Buckhead house with 6 bedrooms and a 3-car garage. I walked to the kitchen drawer where I kept important documents, bank statements, insurance papers, and underneath, the house purchase receipt, $340,000. I'd signed those papers 2 years ago, watched Sarah cry with joy, watched Michael promise I'd always be welcome. Always be welcome. I spread the documents across my table. The mortgage company logo, the Buckhead address, payment breakdown, my signature at the bottom, slightly shaky because I'd been up since 4 that morning working a double shift. Regular firefighter hours plus evening safety inspector at the warehouse. I'd worked both jobs for 3 years after Margaret passed, not because I needed to, but because Sarah did. $45,000 in university debt that I cleared, year by year, shift by shift. The phone sat silent. It wouldn't ring tonight. Sarah wouldn't call back to apologize, to say she'd made a mistake. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a decision. I picked up the receipt again, ran my finger along the total. Most people my age had retirement plans, travel funds, emergency cushions. I had this apartment and a pension covering basics. I'd given everything else so Sarah could live in a neighborhood where people wouldn't ask uncomfortable questions about her background, where she could host parties without explaining her father used to pull people from burning buildings. The gifts sat in their bright wrapping. Lucas would turn 7 in March. Emma just turned 8 in September. Good kids, smart kids. Emma read above her grade level. Lucas could build anything, blocks, circuits, models. They called me Grandpa with genuine affection, at least they had 6 weeks ago, maybe 7. Sarah had started spacing out visits, finding reasons weekends didn't work. Holidays were complicated. Now I understood why. I looked at my reflection in the darkened window. 62. Gray hair cut military short from habit. Lines around my eyes from years of smoke and sun. I looked like what I was, a working man who'd spent his life keeping people safe, teaching younger firefighters how to stay alive. I'd never been ashamed of that. Never thought my daughter would be either. But somewhere between the wedding and the house purchase, between Kimberly's arrival and Michael's jokes about my pension, Sarah had learned to be embarrassed. Learned that a father who'd worked 2 jobs to pay her debts wasn't the kind you displayed at Thanksgiving when the in-laws visited. The receipt crinkled as I folded it. I put the documents back, closed the drawer firmly. The wrapped presents remained on the coffee table, cheerful and absurd. I'd spent 2 weeks finding the right construction set, the right books. Imagine Lucas's face lighting up, Emma diving into the first chapter. Now those gifts would sit here, unclaimed. I sat down in my armchair, the same spot where I'd started this evening, full of plans. City lights outside cast shadows across the floor. Somewhere in Buckhead, in that 6-bedroom house I'd purchased, Sarah was probably explaining to Michael why she'd had to make that call. Probably telling him it went fine, that I'd understood, that there hadn't been any drama. She was right about that much. There hadn't been drama. I'd kept my dignity, kept my voice steady, ended the call cleanly. What I hadn't done was accepted. I sat there as evening deepened tonight, as traffic sounds faded, as the world moved on without knowing James Washington had just been erased from his daughter's life. The phone never rang. The gifts never moved. And somewhere deep in my chest, something shifted. Not breaking, but hardening. The documents stayed spread across the table where I'd left them. I couldn't look away. $340,000, reduced to paper and signatures. My dinner sat cold on the kitchen counter, abandoned when I'd decided to call Sarah. That felt like years ago now. Margaret died 5 years back. Cancer, fast and merciless. I'd held her hand in hospice while she made me promise I'd take care of Sarah, help her finish university, build the life Margaret had always wanted for her. I'd meant that promise. Sarah's final year cost $45,000 I didn't have. I took the evening safety inspector job 3 months after the funeral. 8 hours at the fire station, 4 more at the warehouse. 5 hours of sleep a night for 3 years. She graduated with honors. Hugged me afterward. Said she couldn't have done it without me. 2 years ago, she met Michael, investment banker, family money, private school Polish. He'd cataloged my apartment during dinner, worn furniture, outdated kitchen, fire department certificates. Polite enough, but his questions about firefighting felt like research, not interest. The wedding happened in 6 months. Sarah became Washington Miller. Kimberly introduced me at the reception with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. This is James, Sarah's father, the man who used to put out fires. Blue-collar work, you know. Michael comes from a business family. 3 months later, Sarah called about house hunting in Buckhead. They were short on the down payment. Michael's trust fund wouldn't vest for 2 years. They needed help, just this once. She'd pay me back once his promotions kicked in. I'd transferred everything. $340,000 from my retirement accounts. From the emergency fund I'd promised myself I'd never touch. Nearly everything I had beyond the pension. The house was beautiful. Sarah hugged me in the foyer, said Emma and Lucas would grow up knowing their grandpa made this possible. Michael shook my hand, talked about family looking out for family. That was 2 years ago. By Christmas, things shifted. Kimberly hosted gatherings, and my invitations came late, like afterthoughts. Michael joked about my pension at dinners, how he spent more on client meals than I'd earned in a month. Sarah laughed along, touched his arm, changed subjects. Last year, she asked me not to come to her office party. Her colleagues were corporate types. They wouldn't understand my background. Complicated to explain. Better if I stayed home. I'd stayed home. Told myself she was adjusting to a new world, that she'd remember where she came from. I stood up, chair scraping. Midnight approached. In the bedroom, I lay fully clothed, staring at the ceiling. Sleep wouldn't come. Each time I closed my eyes, I saw Sarah transforming, from the child running into my arms, to the graduate at commencement, to the stranger saying there was no room at the table. At 5 a.m, I gave up, made coffee, let the routine bring calm. The gifts sat where I'd left them. I picked up each one, felt their weight. Good construction set, hardcover books that would last. Emma and Lucas deserved these. I found a notepad, wrote the Buckhead address, though I had it memorized. Wrote the dinner time, 4 o'clock traditionally. Then For Emma and Lucas. Love, Grandpa. I taped the note to the gift bags, set them by the front door. 6 days until Thanksgiving. I looked at the calendar, counted forward. 6 days to decide how this would play. Sarah said I wasn't invited. Didn't say I couldn't come anyway. Didn't say there was no room to knock, to hand my grandchildren their presents, to make sure they knew I hadn't forgotten them. Coffee steamed in my hands. Dawn broke over Midtown, pink and orange against glass towers. Somewhere in Buckhead, Sarah was probably sleeping in that 6-bedroom house. Relieved the uncomfortable call was finished. She was wrong. This wasn't finished. This was starting. I sat with my coffee, watching the sunrise. The gifts waited by the door. The decision was made. In 6 days, I'd drive to that house, knock on that door, see my grandchildren, give them what I'd brought. Sarah could explain to her in-laws why an uninvited guest showed up, could explain to Michael why her father hadn't simply accepted exclusion, could explain to Emma and Lucas why Grandpa wasn't allowed at dinner, or she could open the door and let me in. Either way, I was going. The days would pass, walks, groceries, news, routines, but my mind would be on that moment, that Thursday afternoon, that doorbell ringing in Buckhead. I'd worked double shifts for 3 years to put Sarah through school, emptied my retirement for her house, given everything to make sure my daughter succeeded. Now I'd give her one more thing, a choice. Turn me away in front of her children and live with what that taught them. Or remember that before she was Washington Miller, before Buckhead, before Kimberly and Charles, she was Sarah Washington, raised in a 2-bedroom apartment by a father who never stopped fighting for her. The coffee cooled, the sun climbed, and I sat there counting down to Thanksgiving, knowing something had changed during that sleepless night. Sarah thought she'd made me disappear with a phone call. 6 more days until she learned differently. The 6 days between that decision and Thanksgiving passed slowly. I went through my routine, morning walks, grocery shopping, watching the news. But my mind was always on that moment when I'd knock on their door. Thursday arrived, Thanksgiving Day. I dressed simply, khaki pants, blue button-down, the jacket I'd worn to Margaret's funeral. Nothing fancy. The gift bags sat by my front door where they'd waited all week. At 4 in the afternoon, I picked them up and headed to my car. The drive to Buckhead took 25 minutes. Traffic was light, most people already at their destinations, settled around tables with family. I turned onto Sarah's street, tires crunching over fallen leaves. The houses here belonged in magazines. Manicured lawns, stone facades, attached garages hiding luxury vehicles. I pulled up behind a BMW, then a Mercedes, then a Lexus SUV. Sarah's new friends, the people whose approval she'd traded me for. The house sat perfect in white, black shutters framing tall windows. Through those windows I saw them, candlelight flickering on crystal, women in cocktail dresses, men in blazers. Sarah moved past the dining room entrance, hair styled in some complicated updo, wearing a dress I'd never seen. Emma and Lucas wore matching holiday outfits, red velvet for her, navy suit for him. This was the life I'd purchased, the life I was excluded from. I gathered the gift bags, stepped onto the sidewalk, walked up the stone pathway. Jazz music drifted from inside, mixed with laughter. Someone said something that triggered a burst of amusement. The party was going well. I rang the doorbell. Footsteps approached. The door swung open. Michael stood there in a festive sweater, wine glass in hand, mid-laugh from whatever joke he'd been telling. His expression transformed when he saw me. Surprise, then recognition, then something darker. "What are you doing here?" His voice dropped low, sharp. "We made it crystal clear. No room. Leave. Now. Before I make this embarrassing for everyone." I held up the gift bags, kept my voice quiet. "I just want to give these to Emma and Lucas. 5 minutes. I'll leave the gifts and go. Put them on the porch and get out of here." Michael stepped forward, blocking the doorway completely. Over his shoulder, I could see guests turning, curious. "You weren't invited. You're not wanted. Don't make me call the cops for trespassing." I stood my ground, didn't raise my voice. "They're your children, Michael, but they're also my grandchildren." He moved closer, aggressive, trying to use his height advantage. "This is my house. James?" A voice from behind Michael, tentative but growing stronger. "James Washington?" A man pushed past Michael onto the porch. Tall, silver hair, expensive suit, 60s, maybe late 50s. He stared at my face like he was seeing something impossible. It can't be. His eyes scanned my features. Older now, gray instead of brown, lines instead of smooth skin. But something clicked. My God, it is you! He stepped forward, grabbed my shoulders. I looked at him, really looked. Something familiar in the eyes, the shape of his jaw. A memory surfaced. Younger face, smoke stain, coughing violently, carried over my shoulder down a metal staircase that was buckling under us. Thomas? The name came back. Thomas Bradford? 25 years! He pulled me into an embrace, the kind men give when they mean it. I looked for you. Tried to find you to thank you properly. Department said you'd moved divisions. Michael stood frozen in the doorway, his face losing color. Thomas turned, one hand still on my shoulder, addressing Michael with the kind of authority people don't question. This is James Washington. He saved my life 25 years ago. Warehouse fire on Marietta Street, third floor collapse. I owe this man everything. He looked back at me. You're a hero. I was doing my job. I kept my voice steady. Though seeing Thomas alive and healthy after all these years stirred something I'd forgotten, the reason I'd become a firefighter in the first place. Thomas studied the scene, me on the porch with gift bags, Michael blocking the door, the tension crackling between us. His expression shifted, executive instincts engaging. He looked at Michael. Wait, this is your father-in-law, correct? Sarah's father? Michael's mouth opened, closed, opened again. It's complicated, Mr. Bradford. Family dynamics. You know how it is. There was a miscommunication about dinner arrangements. Miscommunication. Thomas's voice went flat. He looked at the gift bags in my hands, at me standing outside, at Michael positioned like a guard refusing entry. On Thanksgiving Day, silence stretched. Inside, guests had stopped pretending not to watch. They crowded closer to the windows, faces pressed against glass, wine glasses forgotten. Thomas's posture straightened. When he spoke again, his voice carried the weight of someone used to making decisions that stuck. Let me be clear. I don't tolerate disrespect toward service veterans. James Washington ran into a burning building when others ran out. He carried me down 3 flights while the ceiling collapsed around us. He paused, letting that sink in. And you left him standing on the porch on Thanksgiving. Mr. Bradford, it's not... I've been regional director for 3 weeks. This is my first executive decision in Atlanta. Thomas looked directly at Michael, and I saw something in his expression that made me step back instinctively. Professional coldness that contrasted sharply with the warmth he'd shown me seconds before. You're fired, Michael. Consider it effective immediately. Don't report to the office tomorrow. You'll receive termination papers by mail. Michael's face drained of all color as he understood exactly who stood before him and what that meant. Michael's knees buckled. He dropped, actually fell forward, hands grasping at Thomas's pant leg. Mr. Bradford, please! His voice cracked, desperate. I have a mortgage, $2,400 a month. I have children. This was a misunderstanding. I didn't mean any disrespect. The kitchen door swung open. Sarah rushed out, apron over her dress, face pale. She saw me, saw Thomas, saw Michael on his knees. Her wine glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the hardwood. Dad? What's happening? Why is... Your father wasn't invited to Thanksgiving dinner. Thomas's voice cut through her words. In the house he's standing outside of, carrying gifts for his grandchildren. Sarah's mouth opened, but no sound came. Her eyes darted between Michael, Thomas, me. Calculation happening behind her expression, trying to find the explanation that would fix this, the words that would make it okay. Now wait just a minute, another voice, shrill and indignant. Kimberly pushed through the crowd of guests, her diamond necklace catching the light. You can't fire someone over a family dinner. My son is an excellent employee. This is personal. This is... Thomas turned to her, and the look he gave could have frozen water. Ma'am, I can fire anyone who demonstrates character unfit for representing our company. Your son just demonstrated his character perfectly. He turned away, dismissing her completely. Michael was crying now, still on his knees, words tumbling out incoherently. The man who'd stood in the doorway minutes ago radiating aggression and control had disappeared, replaced by someone begging, grasping, breaking apart in real time. I stood there, gift bag still in my hands, watching something I hadn't planned, hadn't wanted. This wasn't why I'd come. I'd come to see Emma and Lucas, to let them know I hadn't forgotten them. Not this. Not this public destruction. But I couldn't stop it either. Thomas extended his hand to me. Come inside, please. Join us. You saved my life. Least I can do is share a Thanksgiving meal. I shook my head gently, took a small step backward. That's kind of you, Thomas. But I should go. Are you certain? Something in his expression told me he understood more than he was saying, that he recognized the situation was more complicated than he'd initially grasped. I'm certain. I looked past him into the house. Emma and Lucas stood in the living room doorway, eyes wide, not understanding what the adults were doing, but knowing something bad was happening, something that involved their grandfather, the man they hadn't seen in weeks. I stepped forward just inside the threshold, set the gift bags carefully on the console table beside expensive coats that cost more than my monthly pension, knelt down, feeling my knees protest, and opened my arms. They ran to me, small bodies colliding with mine, Emma's arms around my neck, Lucas gripping my jacket. I held them close, breathed in their shampoo smell, same brand Margaret used to buy, something with apples. These are for you, I said quietly, directly into their ears so only they could hear. Remember, Grandpa loves you very much, always? Why are you leaving? Emma's voice small and confused. Why can't you stay for dinner? I touched her cheek, then Lucas's. I have to go, sweetheart, but you'll see me again, I promise. Behind me, the chaos continued. Kimberly arguing with Thomas, Michael still on the floor, his father Charles finally stepping forward to help him up, Sarah crying, mascara running down her face, guests whispering, recording this on their phones probably, dinner party entertainment they'd never forget. I stood up, the motion taking more effort than I wanted to admit. Nodded once to Thomas. Acknowledgement, gratitude, goodbye. Didn't look at Sarah. Didn't look at Michael. Walked down the porch steps at the same measured pace I'd used coming up them. Dad! Daddy, wait! Sarah's voice behind me, high and breaking. Please, we can fix this. I didn't turn, didn't acknowledge. Just kept walking to my car while her voice continued calling, begging, trying to undo what couldn't be undone. The Honda's door handle felt cold under my fingers. I slid into the driver's seat, closed the door. The sound from the house muffled immediately. Sarah's crying, Kimberly's shrill protests, the murmur of shocked guests. Through the windshield, I could see them. Michael being helped to his feet by Charles, his face red and wet. Sarah collapsed against the doorframe, apron strings hanging loose. Guests crowded at the windows, phones out, capturing everything. Thomas standing apart from the chaos. Arms crossed, expression unreadable. I sat there, hands on the steering wheel. Engine still off. Satisfaction tasted bitter in my mouth. This wasn't what I'd wanted. I'd wanted to see my grandchildren, give them their gifts, show them they hadn't been forgotten. Instead, I'd witnessed the destruction of Michael's career, my daughter's social humiliation, a Thanksgiving dinner transformed into a scene guests would talk about for years. But even as I thought that, another part of me, the part that had sat alone in my apartment while Sarah laughed with Kimberly and Charles, the part that had been excluded from my own daughter's life after giving her everything, that part whispered something different. This wasn't enough. They needed to understand not just consequence, but recognition. Real recognition of what they'd done, what they'd thrown away, who they'd become. I turned the key. The engine caught. In the rearview mirror, I saw Emma and Lucas pressed against the front window, hands on the glass, watching me leave. I pulled away from the curb slowly, carefully, like a man with nowhere urgent to be. Behind me, the house I'd bought blazed with light and chaos. Ahead, the street stretched empty and quiet. The drive home felt longer than 25 minutes. I drove home that night, satisfaction fading into something heavier. Sleep didn't come easy. When Friday morning arrived, my phone started ringing. I let it ring 3 times before answering. "Dad, please," Sarah's voice shook, raw from crying. "You have to help us. Call Mr. Bradford. Tell him it was a mistake. We can't afford the house without his salary. The mortgage is $2,400 a month." I walked to my window, My reflection stared back, unmoved. I didn't fire Michael, Sarah. I wasn't even supposed to be there. But you know, Mr. Bradford, you can fix this. Her voice broke. We'll lose everything. The kids' school, the neighborhood. Maybe you should have thought about that before deciding I wasn't good enough for your Thanksgiving table. I kept my voice flat. Actions have consequences. Michael's voice in the background. What did he say? Dad, please. Daddy, I'm begging you. I need to go, Sarah. I hung up while she was still talking. She'd called me Daddy. Hadn't used that word in 2 years. The morning stretched quiet. My apartment felt smaller than usual, like the walls were pressing in. Michael on his knees. Sarah collapsed. Emma and Lucas's confused faces. I'd wanted them to understand consequences. Now they did. But was it enough? I pulled a cardboard file box from my closet. Inside lay everything from the house purchase. Bank transfers, mortgage documents, the gift agreement I'd drafted myself. I spread the papers across my dining table, found the paragraph I'd handwritten at the bottom. This gift is provided to support our family and maintain the close family bonds that have always defined us. My handwriting, slightly shaky from exhaustion, but sincere. Close family bonds. They'd excluded me from Thanksgiving in the house I'd bought with every penny of my retirement. I found my old address book, flipped to A. Robert Anderson's entry showed 3 crossed-out numbers. I tried the most recent. Anderson Legal Services. Robert Anderson, please. James Washington. I worked with him on arson investigations. One moment. Hold music played. I waited. James Washington? Robert's voice came through warm, surprised. It's been 7 years. I retired in 2018. I need legal advice about a property gift. Family matter. Keys clicked. I have an opening this afternoon at 2. I'll be there. Robert's office occupied the 3rd floor near 5 Points. I arrived early with the file box, sat reading old magazines. When called, I followed his secretary down a hallway, lined with law degrees. Robert stood, extended his hand. Silver hair where there'd been brown, reading glasses that were new. Good to see you, James. Coffee? Please. He poured while I settled in. The coffee was better than expected. Tell me what's happening. I told him everything. Margaret's death, Sarah's education debt, double shifts, the wedding, the house purchase, Thanksgiving exclusion, Michael's hostility, Thomas Bradford's unexpected appearance, and the firing. Robert listened, taking notes. When I finished, he sat back. That's quite a week. It's not over. That's why I'm here. What are you looking for? I gestured to the box. The house. I gave them $340,000. Sarah promised to pay me back. That never happened. Instead, they started treating me like an embarrassment. Robert leaned forward. The gift? Did you document it? Everything's in the box. May I? He pulled on reading glasses, sorted through papers, found the gift agreement, studied it. His eyes stopped on the handwritten paragraph. Read it twice. Looked up. Did you write this section yourself? About maintaining family bonds? I did. I wanted them to understand it wasn't just money. His expression shifted. James, under Georgia law, gifts with explicit conditions can be challenged if those conditions are violated. I didn't know that when I wrote it. He turned to his computer, pulled up a legal database. Pages scrolled. He clicked, read, nodded. This changes everything. He looked over his glasses. This language, support our family and maintain close family bonds. That's conditional. The Thanksgiving exclusion could be interpreted as material breach. Meaning what? Meaning we have grounds to challenge the gift. We could demand compensation, potentially seek return of property, or significant value. He leaned back. We could file for half the house's value, $170,000, or request 50% ownership. Either option is defensible. I sat with that. Half the house I'd paid for entirely. I don't want to destroy them, I said carefully. I just want recognition, respect, acknowledgement of what I gave. Robert's expression softened. Sometimes the best way to get recognitions is through leverage. File the claim, create legal pressure. They'll understand quickly what they threw away, then negotiate from strength. And if they can't pay, then they lose the house, or give you half ownership, or come to the table ready to truly appreciate what you did. He paused. I've seen many family disputes. The ones where people learn genuine lessons are the ones with real consequences, not accidents like the firing. Real, intentional accountability. I looked at the papers on his desk. The gift agreement with my shaky handwriting. Bank transfers showing $340,000 moving from my accounts to theirs. Years of my life converted to numbers. Robert was explaining options, court challenges, negotiation leverage, settlement possibilities, but I'd already decided they needed to learn. The papers would be filed by Monday. Robert worked over the weekend preparing the documents. I waited, checked my phone constantly for his confirmation text. It came Monday evening. Letter sent via certified mail. They'll have it by Wednesday morning. Tuesday crawled. I pretended to read, watched television without seeing it, made meals I barely tasted. Wednesday morning I woke early, made coffee, sat on my couch with my phone beside me. The text arrived at 10:15. Delivered and signed for. Michael Miller accepted at 9:47 a.m., standing by for next steps. I set the phone down, made fresh coffee, waited. They didn't call immediately. Smart, they were consulting their own lawyer first, trying to understand what they were facing. I spent the day imagining their reactions. Michael reading the legal letter, hands shaking. Sarah crying. Frantic calls to attorneys. Desperate calculations of their financial situation. Thursday morning, I contacted the mortgage bank, asked for the loan officer handling their account, explained professionally that there was a legal dispute regarding property ownership that might affect the title, provided Robert's contact information for verification. The loan officer thanked me for bringing it to their attention, said bank policy required notifying borrowers when litigation affected collateral, said they might need additional security. I hung up, feeling that familiar satisfaction mixed with something heavier. Real-world consequences unfolding in real time. That afternoon, I searched Michael's name online, found a professional forum for logistics managers where someone mentioned that guy who got fired on Thanksgiving for disrespecting a veteran. The post had 17 comments, most expressing shock, some sharing the story further. Michael's LinkedIn showed recent activity, connections with recruiters, inquiries at various companies, but no announcements of new employment. His reputation was damaged. The story had spread through Atlanta's professional community like smoke through a building. My phone rang at 4:30, Sarah's number. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Dad? Her voice was wrecked, barely recognizable. The bank called. They want proof we can cover the mortgage despite Michael's unemployment. They're talking about calling the full loan due. We can't come up with that money. I walked to my window, looked out at the city. Sarah, this isn't about the house. This is about respect. I know, she was sobbing now. I know I was wrong. I was terrible. Just please stop this. Tell the bank it's a mistake. Call off your lawyer. I'm willing to discuss this. But first, I need to see that you truly understand what you did. Not just that you're scared now. Real understanding. We understand. We do. Michael's been looking for work everywhere. Nobody will hire him. The story's everywhere. Our lawyer says you have grounds for the claim. We could actually lose the house. Her words tumbled over each other, desperate and frantic. Emma asks about you every day. She doesn't understand why Grandpa left. Lucas cries at night. That hit harder than I expected. Emma and Lucas. They were innocent in this, but Sarah had created this situation, not me. She'd chosen to exclude me, to treat me like I wasn't good enough, to break those family bonds while living in the house I'd bought. Tell me what you understand, I said quietly. Not what you're afraid of. What you actually understand about how you treated me. Silence. Then Michael's voice in the background, loud and breaking. Tell him we'll do whatever he wants. Apologize. Visit every week. Whatever. Just make this stop. Something crashed. Glass breaking. Michael's emotional breakdown audible even through the phone. Dad, please. Sarah's voice dropped to a whisper. I'm begging you. We're drowning here. Michael hasn't slept in 3 days. The kids hear us fighting. I see what we did to you now. I see it. We made you feel like you weren't family, like you weren't good enough, after everything you gave us. That's right, I said, after everything. The money was just money, Sarah. It was what it represented. I emptied my retirement so you could have that house, so Emma and Lucas could grow up in a good neighborhood, so you could have the life your mother and I always wanted for you. I know. She was crying so hard she could barely speak. I know, Dad. I'm so sorry. Sorry because you're scared, or sorry because you understand? Both. Both. I was ashamed of you, and I shouldn't have been. You're my father. You worked 2 jobs to put me through school. You gave us everything. Her voice cracked completely. And I treated you like you were embarrassing, like you weren't worth a seat at my table. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I stood there, phone pressed to my ear, listening to my daughter break down. Part of me wanted to tell her it was okay, that I'd call Robert and stop everything. Part of me remembered sitting alone in my apartment on Thanksgiving while she laughed with Kimberly and Charles in the house I'd bought. Sarah, I need time to think about what I'm willing to accept. What would actually make this right? Anything. Dad, anything. I'll contact you when I'm ready to discuss terms. But Dad, the bank... I hung up while she was mid-sentence. The silence afterward felt heavier than I expected. I sat down on my couch, phone still in my hand. Outside, the city moved on. Cars passed, people walked dogs. Life continued normally for everyone except the family in that Buckhead house, who'd learned that actions have consequences, that respect can't be taken for granted, that family bonds matter. They were learning, but I hadn't decided yet if the lesson was complete. I didn't call Sarah back for 3 days. Let them sit with uncertainty, wonder what I'd demand. Meanwhile, their situation deteriorated further. Monday morning, I received an email from Robert. Attachment: legal response filed by Sarah and Michael's attorney. I read it at my kitchen table over coffee that had gone cold. Their strategy was clear. Claim the gift was unconditional. Gather witnesses to testify I gave the money freely. Paint me as a vindictive old man weaponizing a family disagreement. Their lawyer was Marcus Webb from Preston and Associates. Expensive firm, $3.50 an hour according to Robert. They're fighting, I said when I called Robert back. Expected. Webb's good, but he's working with bad facts. Robert sounded confident. I'm requesting discovery on their communications. If there's anything in writing showing you expected ongoing family connection, we'll find it. 2 days later, Robert called again. This time, his voice carried excitement. James, I found it. Sarah's text messages from March 2024. Listen to this. Papers rustled. To her friend Jennifer, Dad gave us the house money but constantly reminds us. He wants more attention. It's exhausting being grateful forever. I sat down slowly. She wrote that? 2 years ago she already felt that way? She literally admits you expected something in return. Family connection. That's a condition, James. Webb can argue all he wants, but this text proves it. I stared out my window. I wasn't asking for much, Robert. Just to be part of their lives. I know. That's what makes this so strong legally. You wanted the basics. Respect, inclusion. They couldn't even manage that. While their legal strategy crumbled, Michael's situation collapsed. I learned through Robert's investigator that Southern Supply Chain Solutions was refusing to provide any reference. The termination circumstances, disrespecting a veteran, firing witnessed by dinner guests, made him radioactive in Atlanta's logistics community. He'd been job hunting for 2 weeks. Nothing comparable materialized. Finally, desperate, he took a position at a distribution warehouse. $18 an hour. Loading boxes. The investigator sent photos. Michael in work boots and safety vest, scanning packages on a dock, surrounded by workers half his age. $78,000 a year to $18 an hour. The math was devastating. Robert's update came via email with attachments I didn't want to see but needed to understand. Bank statements showing their account at $847. Mortgage statement with red stamp. Late payment. December's payment missed. Late fees accumulating daily. Sarah had called Kimberly begging for help. The investigator had a source, probably someone in their social circle who'd witnessed the call. Kimberly refused, said they'd already spent $3,500 on Marcus Webb, that if James was being unreasonable, that wasn't their problem. We warned you about marrying beneath our standards, Kimberly had said, according to the source. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was beneath their standards, the man who'd given them everything. That evening, Robert called with the final piece. Court date set. Preliminary hearing, December 12th. Judge Patricia Thornton presiding. She's fair, experienced, no nonsense. 2 days, I said. Come to my office Thursday morning. We'll prepare. 3 hours minimum. I want you ready for anything Webb might try. I'll be there. After hanging up, I walked to my wall calendar, found December 12th, marked it with red pen. The endgame was approaching. I thought about Emma asking why Mommy cried all the time, about Lucas saying Grandpa James wasn't mean, he'd given him the Lego set. The investigator's report included that detail. Children confused, hearing their parents fight about money and Grandpa, not understanding the adult complexities that had brought their world crashing down. They were innocent. They'd done nothing wrong. But they were learning anyway that choices have consequences, that respect matters, that you can't just erase people who love you because they don't fit your new image. Sarah had written that being grateful was exhausting. I'd read that text 5 times, each reading cutting deeper. She'd received $340,000, my entire retirement, and her primary emotion was exhaustion at having to acknowledge it. Not gratitude, not appreciation, exhaustion. That text message would be Exhibit C in court. Right after the gift document and Thomas Bradford's statement, 3 pieces of evidence that would speak louder than any argument Marcus Webb could construct. I made dinner, pasta, simple, eating alone as I had for years. The apartment was quiet. Outside, Atlanta moved through its December evening. Christmas lights appeared on buildings. Families prepared for holidays. Normal life continuing. While somewhere in Buckhead, Sarah and Michael sat surrounded by bills they couldn't pay, watching their life disintegrate. I'd done that. Not accidentally, like Thomas firing Michael. Intentionally. With legal precision and calculated pressure. The satisfaction I'd felt after Thanksgiving had evolved into something more complex. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about teaching a lesson that apparently couldn't be learned any other way. Sometimes people only understand value when it's taken away. Sometimes respect only comes after loss. Thursday, I met with Robert for 3 hours, reviewing every document, every piece of evidence. He walked me through courtroom procedure, what to expect, how to respond. Friday morning came cold and clear. I stood before my bathroom mirror, adjusting my tie. Navy blue, slightly worn but clean and pressed. The suit was my best, outdated cut, but what I had. I looked at my reflection. 62 years old. A father about to face his daughter in court. The weight settled heavy, but I didn't waver. Robert met me on the courthouse steps at 8:45. Classical columns, stone building, American flag snapping in December wind. We walked through security, took the elevator to 4th floor family court. Let the evidence speak, Robert said in the hallway. Stay calm. Don't react emotionally. I nodded. Courtroom 4C had wood paneling, the Georgia state seal behind the judge's bench. When I entered, Sarah and Michael were already at the defendant's table with Marcus Webb. Sarah's eyes met mine briefly. She looked exhausted, face pale, eyes red. She looked away first, dabbing at tears. Michael stared straight ahead, hollow-eyed, silent. Judge Patricia Thornton entered at 9 sharp. 60-something, gray hair in a bun, reading glasses on a chain. She moved with the efficiency of someone who'd seen every family dispute imaginable. All rise. We stood. She sat. We sat. Robert presented our evidence methodically, laid the original gift agreement on the table. The judge put on her reading glasses, studied it. Her finger traced my handwriting, the paragraph about family bonds. She read aloud, "This gift is given to support family unity and maintain close family bonds." She looked up at Marcus Webb. "Counselor, that language seems quite explicit to me." Webb stood, adjusted his expensive suit. "Your Honor, this is vague familial language, not a legal condition. All parents hope to remain close to their children." "Counselor," Judge Thornton's voice cut sharp, "when a father gives his entire savings and writes about maintaining family bonds, then that daughter excludes him from Thanksgiving dinner. That's breach." Robert presented the text message next, blown-up poster size. Sarah's words to her friend Jennifer, dated March 2024. Judge Thornton read it twice, looked at Sarah. Sarah was crying openly now. Then Thomas Bradford's statement. 2 pages, notarized. Robert read key sections. I witnessed Mr. Washington being turned away at the door of the residence he had purchased for them. He was told there was no room at the Thanksgiving table. Judge Thornton removed her glasses, looked directly at Sarah and Michael. I'm ordering a property appraisal within 30 days. Mr. Washington is entitled to compensation of $170,000 or 50% ownership. The defendants violated the clearly stated gift conditions. The evidence is unambiguous. Michael spoke, voice hoarse. Your Honor, we have children. We can't afford... Judge Thornton raised her hand, silencing him. You should have considered your children before excluding their grandfather. Financial consequences follow poor decisions. Court adjourned. The gavel came down. Final. Legal validation of everything I'd known. In the hallway, Kimberly intercepted me. Designer suit, fury radiating. You're destroying them. Her voice rose, drawing attention. She's your daughter. You're taking her house because of one dinner? I stood still. Let her finish. When her voice dropped, I spoke quietly. I just wanted to be part of the family, Kimberly. You convinced Sarah I wasn't good enough. You turned my daughter into someone I don't recognize. This isn't about the house. You're cruel. I gave them everything. They gave me nothing. Not even respect. Sarah emerged from the courtroom then. Saw us. Something broke completely. She collapsed against the marble wall. Couldn't catch her breath. Mascara running. Dad. Daddy. Please. The kids. She couldn't complete the sentence. Just crying, echoing in the hallway. Michael stood beside her awkwardly, not knowing how to fix what he'd helped break. I looked at my daughter, saw the child who'd run into my arms, the young woman at her mother's funeral, the graduate at commencement, all still there, underneath the person ashamed of me. But I turned away, from Kimberly mid-accusation, from Sarah's sobbing. I'd said what needed saying. Robert walked beside me to the elevator. Behind us, Kimberly's voice called something else. I didn't turn back. The elevator doors closed, and we descended in silence. Outside in December, sunlight, Robert spoke. That was harder than I expected. Yes. We stood on the courthouse steps. The flag still snapped in the wind. They'll want to settle, Robert said. Webb will call by Monday. They can't pay $170,000. They can't afford half ownership. They'll come to the table. And then what? That's up to you, James. You've won. The question now is what winning looks like. I nodded. We shook hands. He went back inside. I walked to my car 3 blocks away. The drive home took 20 minutes. I listened to the radio without hearing it. When I reached my apartment, I sat in the car for a while, engine off. I'd won. The judge ruled in my favor. Evidence validated every claim. They'd learn respect now, understand value, recognize what they'd thrown away. But sitting there in my car, staring at my apartment building, all I felt was tired. The weekend after the hearing passed in strange quiet. No calls from Sarah, just silence and the knowledge that somewhere in Buckhead, my daughter and her husband were facing impossible mathematics. Robert called Monday morning. Marcus Webb reached out. They want settlement negotiations. Banks threatening foreclosure. They can't raise the money, he paused. But what do you actually want? To take the house? Destroy them? Because legally, we've won. The question now is what winning means to you. I told him I'd think about it. Spent Monday walking Piedmont Park against December cold. Wednesday evening, my doorbell rang. Sarah stood in the hallway. She looked terrible. Thinner, dark circles, hair pulled back carelessly. Jeans and old sweater instead of usual polish. Dad, can we talk, please? I need to say some things. I need you to know I finally understand. I stepped aside. We sat in my living room. Her on the couch edge, hands clasped white-knuckled. Me in my armchair. Long silence. I was a terrible daughter. The words came rough. After you bought us the house, I told myself we deserved this upscale life, and you were a reminder of where I came from. Working-class Atlanta. Firefighter's kid. She looked down. Kimberly kept saying things. Your father. The laborer. Manual work? How quaint. And I started believing it mattered. I was ashamed of you. Ashamed of the man who gave me everything. Her voice broke, but she pushed through. I convinced myself being grateful was exhausting. That you expected too much. But you just wanted to be part of our lives. To see Emma and Lucas. And I couldn't even give you 2 hours on Thanksgiving. She wiped her eyes. Michael got a new job. $52,000 at a small supply company. Combined with my salary, we make $107,000. The mortgage is $2,400 monthly. We're 2 months behind. The bank wants $4,800 plus penalties. Your claim is $170,000. We have $847. You're losing the house regardless? Yes. Even if you dropped your claim tomorrow, the numbers don't work. She looked up. I came to tell you, I'm sorry. Really sorry. Not because I'm scared. Consequences are happening anyway. I'm sorry because I finally understand what I threw away. She leaned forward. You didn't give me money, Dad. You gave me your life. Every double shift was hours you didn't sleep. Every fire you entered was a risk. All so I could have opportunities you never had. And I treated it like nothing. I looked at my daughter, the child I'd raised alone, the teenager who'd cried in my arms, the young woman I'd worked myself to exhaustion for. Sarah, I didn't give you money for gratitude. I gave it because I loved you. I kept my voice level, but all I wanted was to be part of your life, to be grandpa to Emma and Lucas, not to be thanked constantly, just included, valued as family. I know that now. She wiped her face, mascara streaking. Emma asks about you every day. When is Grandpa coming? Can we call Grandpa? Lucas drew you a picture at school, a firefighter. His teacher asked who it was, and he said, my grandpa, who I never see. Her voice broke. How do I explain to them that Mommy pushed you away, that Mommy was ashamed? They're 6 and 8. They just know their grandfather disappeared. You tell them the truth, that you made mistakes, that you're trying to fix them. Can I fix this? Tell me what you need. I'll do anything. I leaned back. I don't know yet, Sarah. I need to think. This isn't about punishing you anymore. But I can't pretend nothing happened. You cut me out. I have to decide if I can let you back in. She nodded, accepted uncertainty, stood to leave. At the door, she paused. I love you, Dad. First time in years. I know, I said. She left. I watched from my window as she walked to her car under streetlights, shoulders curved inward. I stood there after she'd driven away, apartment quiet again. Her words echoed, I finally understand. Maybe she did. The question was whether understanding was enough. I spent 4 days thinking. Walked Piedmont Park every morning, sat with coffee each evening. Friday night, I made my decision. Sunday morning, I called Robert. I want to drop the legal claim, all of it. Silence. Then, you're sure? We won. The house is essentially yours. I'm sure. But I need terms for reconciliation. Real terms, not promises that fade. Tell me what you need. I outlined it carefully. Weekly visits with grandchildren, mandatory. Inclusion in all family occasions, no exceptions. Public acknowledgement to everyone who'd witnessed my exclusion that they'd been wrong. Robert listened, agreed to formalize it. Monday, I texted Sarah. First text in months. Family meeting. Tuesday, 3 p.m. Midtown Caf on Peachtree. Bring Michael. Bring Kimberly. I've made my decision. Her response came within 2 minutes. We'll be there. Thank you. Christmas Eve afternoon, I arrived early. Took a corner table. Waited. Sarah, Michael, and Kimberly arrived together, all nervous. Michael wore a cheap suit, his corporate wardrobe gone. Sarah wore a simple dress. Kimberly maintained her designer armor, but looked defensive. Robert came last, sat beside me. Professional support. I unfolded paper with my handwriting. Terms I'd considered carefully. I forgive the debt completely. The $170,000 forgotten. The house stays yours. But here's what I require. Non-negotiable. I see Emma and Lucas every week, minimum 2 hours. I'm invited to all family occasions, no exceptions. And you tell everyone, your friends, Kimberly's circle, anyone who saw how you treated me, that you were wrong? Michael spoke first, voice rough. Done. All of it. No argument. James, I've been working at a warehouse. $18 an hour lifting boxes with kids half my age. I know what struggle is now. I understand the value of real labor. I should have respected what you did from the beginning. I didn't. I'm sorry. Sarah stood, moved around the table, pulled me into a hug. I stiffened instinctively, then slowly accepted it. Her arms tightened. Thank you, Dad. I won't waste this chance. I swear I won't. Kimberly spoke last, words difficult. I was wrong about you, James. I thought success meant corporate titles and country clubs. I didn't value what you really were. A man who sacrificed everything for his daughter. A man of genuine character. I apologize. Not warm, but honest. That mattered. I don't want apologies for show, I said firmly. I want to see it in actions. Consistent actions. Emma and Lucas deserve a grandfather present in their lives. But this relationship is built on respect now. Mutual respect. Not obligation. Not guilt. Respect. They all nodded. Robert produced a formal document. Simple. 1 page. Terms clearly stated. Everyone signed. Legal and binding, but more importantly, a commitment to change. Christmas morning dawned cold and clear. I dressed carefully, gathered gifts I'd bought weeks ago, construction set for Lucas, book collection for Emma, thoughtful items for Sarah and Michael. I drove to Buckhead, the house I'd purchased, returning now as welcomed family instead of excluded parent. The irony wasn't lost on me. The door opened before I reached it. Emma and Lucas burst out into December morning. "Grandpa!" They tackle-hugged me, nearly knocking me backward. I laughed, genuinely laughed for the first time in weeks. Emma grabbed one hand, Lucas the other, pulling me inside with excited chatter. The tree was decorated beautifully. Dinner smells filled the air, turkey, stuffing, all the traditional scents. Michael stood in the kitchen doorway, awkward but sincere. "Thank you for this, James, for the second chance we don't deserve. I'll spend the rest of my life proving worthy of it." Sarah watched from the dining room as I sat on the living room floor with Emma and Lucas, building Legos, reading books, just being present in their lives again. Her eyes were wet, but she was smiling. Real smiling, the kind I hadn't seen in years. Later, in the kitchen, while Michael carved turkey, Sarah spoke quietly beside me. "This isn't me forgetting what happened, Dad. This is me choosing to move forward. But if this relationship fails again, I won't give you another chance to fix it. I won't fail you again. I promise on Emma and Lucas, on everything that matters." The day passed in warmth and normalcy I'd thought lost forever. Emma showed me her art project. Lucas demonstrated his newest Lego creation. We ate dinner together at the table. All of us, no one excluded. Simple moments that meant everything. A week later, I met Thomas Bradford for coffee. 2 old firefighters in a downtown cafe, catching up like the friends we should have been all along. "I heard you settled with your daughter," he said. "Gave up the legal claim entirely. That took real strength, James. More than running into burning buildings ever did." "I didn't want revenge, Tom. I wanted recognition. I wanted my family back on terms of mutual respect." I sipped my coffee. "There's a difference between justice and vengeance. Justice means making things right. Vengeance just destroys. I got what I actually needed. Recognition that I have value, that I matter. The money was never the point." He nodded slowly, understanding in his eyes. Sometimes the hardest fires to put out are the ones in families. No water can reach those. "No," I agreed, "but sometimes truth can, and boundaries, and consequences that teach without destroying completely." I finished my coffee and watched the city through the window. Somewhere across town, Emma was probably showing Sarah the drawing she'd made me last night. A fire truck with Grandpa's truck, written in careful crayon letters. Lucas was probably building something with the construction set, creating elaborate structures that defied physics, but worked in his imagination. Life had given me something better than revenge. It had given me my purpose back, not just as a father, but as a grandfather, as family. The house in Buckhead wasn't mine legally, but the family inside it was, and that had always been what mattered. That had always been the point of everything. The double shifts, the sacrifices, the $340,000, not gratitude, not ownership, just family, just love, just being included in the lives of people who mattered most. I stood, shook Thomas's hand, walked out into December sunlight, drove home to my modest midtown apartment, and for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt at peace. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.